It's been a minute since I've done one of these. I'm walking to work this morning. It's getting darker in the morning, getting towards fall. And I'm kind of thinking about Alexis de Tocqueville and his book, Democracy in America. And this is, I'll admit, just absolutely ridiculous to me. Like, I don't know. If somebody else told me this, I'd be like, oh yeah, dude, come on, get your head out of the clouds, Somewhere, I don't remember which part, and I don't remember the exact wording there, so I'm going to paraphrase. Somewhere in Democracy in America, Tocqueville is talking about what makes, or he's talking about this characteristic of American discourse and how this characteristic kind of sets the stage for freedom of expression, free speech, that kind of stuff. And what he talks about is how, he writes this, I think it's published in 1832 or 1833. So he's visiting the United States before that. And what he talks about is how in the United States there is the absence of a national press. And because there's the absence of a national press, and there's local newspapers with local editors giving their opinions, you have this real just uncontrolled, unregulated space for opinion and opinion on current events to happen. As a teenager, being interested in Noam Chomsky, of course, I was aware of and had read parts of Manufacturing Consent. And, I'd listened to Chomsky talk about it and that kind of stuff. And I'd kind of come to the idea that, well, we don't have a national, as in like a national government press, but we do have a national press through this kind of corporate press, which does limit how things could be talked about and what things can be talked about, and not always through like direct censorship, but guys like Chomsky, they didn't get invited on places like CNN. They didn't get invited on places like Fox News, because he's not concise. He used to talk about it like the purpose for TV had become advertising, and to be on a syndicated network TV show, network news show, Chomsky had to reduce the complexity of the things that he was talking about to short sound bites that could easily fit between commercials. And so when social media exploded, I kind of saw it as this potential resurgence of this freedom of expression, freedom of opinion, this way of kind of recapturing this thing that Chomsky would talk about growing up in Philadelphia, or maybe it was visiting his uncle in Philadelphia and going to the newspaper stand with him early in the morning and having these working class people kind of congregating at this newspaper stand to talk about ideas. And they were talking about, all kinds of things. They were talking about philosophers, they were talking about politics, they were, working class, but they were interested in these bigger ideas, and they weren't just reduced to, whatever sitcom is on and whatever sports game is on, and so I kind of thought that social media might be this way of recapturing that sort of spirit, of this way of just interacting with things that should be in public discourse, in popular discourse, I think should be. Because, the way that you have it now is a lot of things are relegated, the real discussions about a lot of things are relegated to their corners, and popular discourse doesn't engage with them in any kind of meaningful way. Take, for example, the study of history. The study of history is very much an academic discipline, and it's very much academics talking to each other. And that's a good thing. That's necessary. Because they need to be honing their skills, honing their field, making it, ever more like the way the field of history professionally ought to be. And in order to do that, they need this, engagement and interaction between academics that is not easy and digestible for a popular audience. But that academic conversation needs to also be made easily accessible and digestible for a popular audience. Because if it isn't, then that space is relegated to whoever's going to take it up. And then, these ideas about American myth and American legend as factual history can occupy, a central space in popular discourse and popular thought. And so I kind of thought that social media was a chance at, dislodging that. And, that's a lot of the reason why I, in fits and starts and stops, have been so adamant about trying to create this space for this kind of more thoughtful, more in-depth, more considered, more contextualized public discourse to take place, and also to challenge people who are trying to monopolize that space. People like John McNaughton, who the political message in his artwork is very much about monopolizing discourse, monopolizing the concepts of what can and can't be American, what can and can't be American history. So, that's just my idea of why I have been trying so hard. I mean, I also give up pretty easy. I get frustrated and give up pretty easy. But that's why I've just keep coming back to this, and in a ridiculous way, it makes me think of my dad, who used to listen to talk radio, and he'd listen to Rush Limbaugh, and he'd listen to Sean Hannity, and he'd listen to Glenn Beck, and he would get furious listening to these guys, and just irate, and through all of his seething anger at the attempted monopolization of discourse that these talk radio people were doing, he kept saying, nobody's responding to this. Nobody's engaging with this. Somebody needs to engage with this. Somebody needs to talk about this, And maybe that's where, that's what planted the seed. But, so, I guess the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, unless it does. But it's just funny what was on my mind this morning. Why I think this, social media can be a lot like screaming into an empty room, and it gets frustrating, and you get pushback, and you get, people who refuse to engage with you, or attempt to silence you, attempt to secure a monopoly over discourse that you are disrupting, and that gets frustrating, and probably the thing that frustrates me the most is, the two things that frustrate me the most is, the three things that frustrate me the most is being misunderstood. I put a lot of effort into trying to be clear and trying to say things, but I've been told by several people that that effort isn't amounting to comprehension. So I recognize that, at least 50% of that problem is on my end, and I need to develop the means to express more clearly what I have to say. The other thing is being misrepresented. People trying to take what I say and twist it and turn it into something I'm not saying, as though this is exactly what I said. That I find very frustrating. And the third thing, probably, in my opinion, the most low is the weaponization of culture. This use of cultural expectations as a tool of shame to attempt to silence. I think I avoid doing that, even to the people I criticize. I criticize John McNaughton's political messaging in his artwork, but I don't ever say he shouldn't be painting this. Or I don't ever say, how could someone be painting this? How could someone who thinks this, or how could this be? I engage with it. I engage with what he says about it. I engage his artwork with other forms of discourse. And I think, honestly, not very many people are doing that with his artwork. And so, even though I don't think I could possibly disagree more with the political, cultural, historical message that he is trying to communicate through these images, even though I couldn't disagree more with that, I still think I treat him more like an artist, and I engage with what he has to say as though it is worth deep engagement with. I don't just dismiss it. I think I do that more than probably anybody else out there, and so I probably, respect him as an artist more than probably anybody else out there, even though I fundamentally disagree with his message.